Okay, so you can see pre-shaded up again. So obviously if you're following along with this one, you'll know that we've obviously stripped back, we've come back. So what we're going to do now is do this, but obviously a lot more toned down than what we had before. So twofold approach to this. What we're going to do, we're still going to do what we did before, but what we're going to try and do is just make it a little bit more subtle, shall we say, than what we had it the first time. So okay, what we've got here, I'm going to pull the top off, we've got some Tamiya XF4. So we just grab a little bit of thinners. Now to be honest, I haven't got much of this left, so we're just going to try and scrounge some out the bottom of the colour cup. Trouble with doing this is you get lumps in your paintwork, but we're down to very, very low. And as I say, we're not going to need tons of this, so I'm not too worried about it. So we're just going to pop this straight into the colour cup like this. Now all we're going to do is pick out a few little areas which are obviously going to be done as chipping coming through. So what we're going to do, we're literally just going to patch around a few little areas, okay? So what we're going to do is some little outer boxes type shapes and just some little patches around. So it's showing through in a few little areas. Like here, perhaps we'll pick some out along here. Leading edges are definite. Okay, just around these bits, so it just goes in like this. Okay, a few little bits around here. And say these sort of working areas. We're going to do a sort of twofold chipping effect on this. Okay, a few little ones just around there. Okay, so we're just going to do this front end sort of like this. Now on the belly, perhaps we'll just do very few, not like we did last time where we get completely carried away with it, but just a few down the bottom here. And say leading edge, quite important, so make sure we get those in, but we'll just pick out some areas, try and keep it a bit even. Obviously we've got bomb racks down the bottom here, so we'll pick them out. Down the back. Blow over this area here. A little bit more down the back, under the tail, just like this, top of the tail. Now we're getting low on this, so what we do is just pick a few little more areas around, on top, around the back, all over. Okay, so we're out of that, and to be honest we really are out of that, so we'll have to get another tub of that in. Okay, so what we're going to do, now we've done that, we can actually go around and do the actual paint chipping of it as well. So for that, what we're going to do, just quickly clean out the airbrush and come back with some silver. So okay, now we've got the silver in, so we're just using any silver will do. Okay, what we're going to do is just pick out a few areas. Now obviously we've got pre-shading on here, we're going to do post-shading afterwards, so there's going to be lots of different colours on here. So what we're going to do is just going to pick out some areas of interest. Okay, so we're just going to run it around gaps, joins, perhaps where we've got the pre-shading in. And what we're trying to do is sort of mottle between the chipping as it comes through and everything else, okay? So we sort of get this type of effect. And let's say what we do, we'll be a lot more careful as we do our chipping this time than we did the first time. So we're just popping around absolutely everywhere, leading edges. Here. So we're not trying to obliterate this post shading for the black. What we're trying to do is sort of accentuate it just a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to come around here. So I'm just going to carry on a sec and continue to put some of this in. Okay, so this way, what we're going to do is some chipping with Maersk Oil. So this is just humble Maersk Oil. There's loads of different ones on the market. They all roughly do the same. Basically, it's liquid latex. What we got here is a little bit of sponge. So we just grab a bit, and all we're going to do is type of a dabbing effect. Okay, as you would like a stipple for where you want anything to be sort of chippings. So obviously pick out panel lines. Just run it down panel lines. Perhaps we've got these bomb racks underneath. I have quite a bit. What we do is I put a little bit in a cup and you can just tap it down. Now you don't want to flood this because otherwise you have all types of problems with it being flooded. But if you just put on a little bit, you can go around and make some nice little scrapes and bumps and bits out of it. So obviously if you put quite a bit on like that, you're going to get quite a bit come out of it. So we're just going to do quite a bit down here around these gun access panels, and then obviously where we've got crosses in little things. And what it'll do, it'll dry nice and clear. A bit down there, bits on these wing roots tend to pick up. Okay, it'll dry clear and then obviously we can spray over it, but make sure it's totally dry before you come in. Now the great thing about this is that obviously it won't affect your paintwork, perhaps like we've shown in the other ones with various things. And this one's a lot easier to cover up if it goes slightly wayward, shall we say, a little bit over the top. So there we go, just like that. So we just make a couple of other little marks around here. Just like that. So what we'll do, we'll give that half hour or so to dry off. Okay, I've already done the top half, which is drying already, so you can see it on there like that. And then we should be able to come along, spray it over, same thing, and then immediately peel these back off, or just give them a little rub with your finger, and they should peel off. Okay, so we're back in with the blue mix. Okay, so we're using the extra acrylics. This is the 15042 or glossy blue. 50-50 mix with Tamiya X28. Okay, so all we're going to do now is just pass a light dusty coat to start with. Okay, and as it begins to get a layer on, we'll start to build it up. Now obviously we haven't masked up too much around here, because we'll spray in afterwards all these colours. So once we get going, we can start to build up the colour. And I'm spraying this quite a high air pressure because we want a little bit of texture for the weathering that will come shortly. So we'll just carry on to spray this right the way over. Got to do a little bit of clean up work around this canopy, but what I want to do is really get it on the wings for the minute. So we'll just do the same on this other wing. So I'm going to go round and just give this a coat of blue right the way over the entire model. Okay, so we're happy how that's gone on. So what we've done here, we've got some of the blue left in the colour cup. We've just added a drop of light grey, in this case XF19. Plenty of thinners. Okay, so we want to thin this quite heavily because this is what's going to be lightening and starting to weather our aircraft. Okay, so all we're going to do now is just pick out the centre of the panels. Okay, it's a very wet mix, so just be careful how you use it. So we're just going to do middles of panels before we're taking off some of this chipping work that we put on before. All we're trying to do is just lightly break up some of this colour that's on here. I'm just trying to give it a more perhaps weathered look to the blue. So all we do is just go around, and what this is basically all we're trying to do is bleach this. So now just right over, you can see it's quite a light colour. Okay, so we just bleach this through a little. So on the centres, and also the thing is, if you have got any areas of the model where perhaps the paintwork doesn't look too good, you can simply, you know, perhaps like a small part on the rudder, for instance, that I've got, which is just a little bit lighter than I would have hoped. It didn't cover quite as well. So we've done that, so that will do. And then obviously what we've got back here, I've got one of these flaps, which I will now spray this colour, so it looks like a replacement part has gone on. So it is supposed to be a different colour. This is a thin paint, it's going to take a few more coats to cover this up than normal. But you get my drift of what we're trying to achieve. So we just put that down there like that. Obviously we've done over here, you might be able to see, we've gone around and we've done all the doors and the anywhere that's going to need to be painted blue. So we've got the gun bay tops of the doors done, they're done just here. Then also we've got the main gear door, everything else like that. We've got the front ones here, so we'll those quick and blow over. So everywhere that needs to be blue is now painted blue. So we just got some little bits to touch in, just like so. So that, I'm very happy with how we're looking. So we just push that towel right the way over so we can get any paint colours needed. And because this has got a slightly more flat finish to it, it should just give us a slightly better colour. Just done like so. So okay, what we're going to do now is allow this to dry for about an hour just to totally go off on top. Okay, in the meantime, you can probably see under here we've done a little bit of chipping work and everything else to take it off, so this can show you what we've been doing. What we've actually gone this time, because we've used the Maersk Oil, you get this type of effect where it's not as grainy and gritty as the other, but it's a lot easier to work with. So if we just try and angle this so you can see this nicely. If we bring this one just down here, let me just bring the camera down, hopefully you can see. Right, so what you've got actually the actual parts in there. What you want to do is just lightly start with, just expose the top, just gently scrape over the top, okay, and that gives you enough to get your grip. Then all you do is literally rub your finger across, and you guys can't see that, there we go, rub your finger across it, okay, and just rub off all of the Maersk Oil, just like so. Okay, so if I do another patch we've got down here, if I spin this, I'm trying to do this without handling it too much. Okay, so we're going to go for this one in here. What we're going to do is just lightly scrape just the top parts, okay, just where the Maersk Oil is, just like so, okay, and then wet your finger, rub it on a cloth. You should be able to then get in there and rub it off to reveal your chipping. So if we just do a little bit along the front here, we've got going just down here, and when you rub it away, you should, he says, come up with a situation something like this. So we do just pick a few more bits at random. Just come along and scrape them out, giving you a more lightly chipped effect. But you need to sort of start it off, so if I'm just pushing down with a blade, back of the blade of your knife, just like so, will help it out. So then when you do come in, it gives it something to bite to. Okay, and you can come up with your little chipping just like that. So it's a more heavy chipped effect, but you've got a lot more control over it. Okay, so that's just another way of literally doing it. So if we just pull some of these off around here, as you can see, it works very, very well. It just takes a little bit just to start it, to get it going, and then as soon as you have, you'll find it chips very nicely. But you find if you wet your finger, rub it on your jeans to make it polished, you should go along and pick up anything that needs to peel off, will peel off, just like that. So we've got the fronts of the around the guns there, just like that. Obviously I'm not going to touch the top yet, but I'll go through it again. But that gives you our idea of the actual chipping that we're going after and what we're trying to achieve with it. Okay, so it's a lot lighter, not as much as intense as the last ones, but it's still an overall good effect. Okay, so as you can see, we've just sprayed the underside. What we've done, literally, we've just masked up and sprayed it white. So we've done the wells down here, and obviously the gear is all done. At the same time, we've taken care inside of gear doors. Okay, so they're all painted up and done. So now all we've got to do is redo this area at the top here. So all we've done is mask these up again. Now I know we did them before, which was probably a bit of a mistake. So if you're following along this as we build it, so to speak, then obviously, you know, perhaps it'd be better to sort of do it this way. So what we've got to do is just do a small little, tiny little bit that just goes across here. Okay, then we're going to take the XF4 and basically repeat what we did to that top half again. So we just grab some here, we're going to spray it down neat as we did just before. Okay, just a little bit in the colour cup. Okay, we're just going to blow in. The only nice thing now is obviously it's all got a bit of texture in there. Because it's neat, it's going to dry very quickly. Okay, there's one. two, just like that. Happy with how those are. So we'll just hang them up. Okay, so moment of truth now. What we'll do is we can unmask all of this. Now, hopefully it won't peel too much with it, but you might find you actually peel a little bit more of the paint off, as you can see underneath here. Perhaps you can see I'm taking a little bit more paint with it. And it is one of the ways I used to do work. What I used to do was I used to put on the silver, put tape over the top and rip it off quite sort of sharply, if you like. The only thing is you don't have much control on where it comes and goes, but you can probably see down here on the tape, if we move you in a little bit more, you might be able to see on this yellow tape here, it's actually taking a little bit more with it as it goes. So just take this off. Okay, so one way to stop this as I'm doing this is you can actually put on a coat of clear gloss, let that dry completely, give it a couple of days to go off, and then what that'll do is it will stop it peeling off the paint, because the gloss will be tough as nails and a lot harder than the everything else. So we just whip these off. There we go. So that's our underside taken care of. Okay, top part I'm hoping will come off really easy. Okay, it's probably a lot easier to do than it did the other way. So there's our gun bay. And there we go. So if we just shift those out the way without sticking it to myself, which is the normal way. If you want to be a bit frugal, you can always keep those bits of tape and all the rest of it. But there we go now. That's our gun base done. Obviously we've got to put this flap back on and glue that into place, so we'll do that in a moment. But there we go, that's how we've wanted this to look for quite some time now. So we've got the wheel wells are all done. Obviously they can have a wash as well to weather them up and bits and pieces like that, but that is basically what the type of thing we're looking for, is to have it like this. So what we're going to do now, let those bits all dry off. We can go around and do them again, so I won't repeat it, but basically the metal work as we did, the bullets, the wash, we can install the guns onto it if we wanted to, and then we can get on with some decaling. Okay, so you should probably see we just started on the actual decaling of this thing. Now what I've done here is I've just put together all the bays, so all they are is literally just blue tacked in place, because obviously the stars and bars go right the way across. What I'll do is I'll let them all soak in, completely go off. Plenty of micro set and sol, which will make the decal suck down and conform and everything else. Then I can go along with a blade and cut it all into the actual segments, so when you take it all apart, obviously each part does correspond to the right area underneath it. It saves a lot of farting around of actually trying to cut it all up beforehand. So a quick run through, yeah, we've done this loads of times before. Basically warm water, it's got a couple of drops of the set in. Now as I said, micro set is the one that softens the decal, okay? This is the one which actually helps it conform and everything else. Micro sol, the red one, is the one you put afterwards, which really makes it shrink down and get on with it and bite down. So little tip, couple of tips. Okay, first off is cut the numbers off before you put them in the water. That way it stops them soaking around in the water itself. Face down, warm water this is, and it's got a couple of drops, as I said, of the actual micro set in this water in the first place, which just helps it all sort of work nicely. So once it's been in a little bit, you can turn it around and everything else. Okay, remember, check where you're going to go. Look for panel lines as it's going to go on here and everything else. You should check your references. Double check with references as well. Don't just go with what it says on the bit of paper. Have a look at the real aircraft and just make sure that the guys who actually have put this together have got it right. For this particular one, we're doing Bunker Hill, and Bunker Hill has the arrows, has the white arrows upwards. All the carriers had different types of arrows and markings, so each aircraft knew exactly was from which aircraft carrier. So all we do is pre-wet the area, decal sits on top, and then you just slide it off from underneath, just like so. Okay, now this one goes over. Now these decals are very thin, very nice, but also they're very, very easy to tear. Okay, so we've got this one in. Now, being white, your only trouble is you tend to have quite an opaque look to them. If you want a real strong, heavy-duty white, then sometimes you need to go over them twice, or certainly for something like this, you could actually pre-spray it in the actual colour. So there's the decal just sat on like that. We come along with a cotton bud, okay, and very gently, well, I've just moved it, which isn't good because this lines up with the panel lines, okay. All we're going to do is just wipe off some of the water, and as I said, these are very, very slippery and moving around very, very easy, okay. So once that's on and you've got it down, you can just roll the water out from underneath it, and it gets rid of the bubbles and any light spots. You might find you get little spots underneath. Now for this we're going to weather up these decals as well, but we'll talk about that in a moment once they're all down and dry. Okay, it's on there to start with, so what we're going to do, we're going to brush over it with some more Micro Sol, Set, the blue one. See, even I'm getting confused with them now, okay. Goes right over the top. Make sure you go on the edges as well so it can get underneath it. Okay, leave that on there to start to dry, okay, and what it'll do, it'll just soften up the decal. Then you can come along with the red one in about 10 minutes time. I'll do it now because I'm naughty and should wait, but we'll put it on now, okay, and you'll find that it will shrink it down. Now if it shrivels up and looks a complete mess, just don't touch it, okay, give it some time and it will be okay. As you can see, we've got it on the rudder as well. We've already got one on there. So what this one's doing now, it's drying on, but I'm still seeing it not shrink down as much as I want to. So we're coming in with another coat of Micro Sol, and this will just help it stick down a little bit more. Now if you do find you've got a torn decal, in this case I'm not worrying about it at all, because that's what I'm going to do to them afterwards. I'm going to go along with the blade, cut them slightly to make them all scrape around. But what we're going to do, every now and again, we're just going to top it up with a little bit more Micro Sol, because I want these really to sucker down. Once they're down and dry, as you'll see in a minute, we're going to go over them and scalpel them with a very sharp knife just along the panel lines, and another coat of Micro Sol on there so it sucks into all the panel lines and everything else like that. So we're starting to come to life now. As you can see, we've got the engine on the front as well. At the moment that's just sat on there because I wanted to make sure it all fitted and was looking okay, but I hope you agree we're starting to look the sort of business now, and she's really starting to come to life. Now pretty straightforward, all this decaling, so I'm going to get on with it. The only things I will say is obviously you've got choices what you're going to do. You've got some black anti-skid strips down here in the actual crank of the gull. You could airbrush those in, but there again I'm going to distress them, so I'm going to tear up the decal a little bit once it's on there, so I will use the actual decal for it. The other thing as well, around the top area up here, you've got a situation where it's got like white lines everywhere. To be honest, all that is a way of making white tape. During the war, these things used to leak everywhere. Okay, you've got a fuel tank at the front, you've got various reservoirs in this area up the top here. So what they used to do is tape them up to stop the oil flicking out over the windscreen and obviously spoiling the visibility for the pilot. So what all that is white tape. Now you can use the decal if you wanted to, you could do it without because not all of them had them, and certainly you could obviously just make it up with thin masking tape. If you've got something like we've got this thin stuff here, you can make it yourself. They do this stuff in white as well, so you could just put it on and go for it like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to carry on decaling the rest of this one, get it all done, and then we can go around and sort of sharpen up and we can weather some of these decals.